We are a tech company. I do understand technology, but I promise I shall use as few acronyms as humanly possible. And also, I'm very conscious I'm the last person between you and the bar, so I shall be as quick as possible. Um, you talked about Bullhorn very quickly, and for anyone who looks to look at the board here, Peter Simmons is our chairman, and he is probably well known for Dot Digital. And you will, if anyone knows the Dot Digital story about how they found a company they partnered with called Magento, effectively sort of hung onto their coattails. If you just swap the words out for Bullhorn, you'll hear the same story. The extraordinary is businesses are completely different, but the metrics are identical. And what Peter's brought to the company, if anyone knows the story, you'll hear it on the way through. But I mean, let's first of all explain who we are. We're a software company, and we're very fast growing, which I'll explain in a moment. It's a very high margin business because it's all our own technology. We're not reselling somebody else's stuff. And we're a SaaS business. We're a software as a service business. So we rent our services on a per user per month basis, how we charge for it. And we're a software company, and the space we're in is in communications. If you like, you can call us a telco. Um, and the difference between us and I think most telcos is that we believe very firmly that all communications have to be connected to the data. And a lot of magic comes out when you do that. And just trying to explain that in the simplest possible way. I left my mobile phone behind. If a mobile phone does it very well, in a mobile phone, you've got data. You've got your address book. You've got your mum and your dad's address, okay? And you've got a phone. So if you want to call your mum, you just tick on a number. And when Susan calls you, it says who's calling. It's matching data and communications together at the very, very simplest level. But we go an awful lot further than that. And the key to us is where businesses keep their data. Because businesses nowadays don't use Rolodexes anymore, or perhaps, or very few do. People keep them in databases. And these databases have got a name. They're called CRM systems, Customer Relationship Management Systems. I will talk about CRM systems quite a lot, I'm sorry. But a customer is basically where people want to keep a log of all their relationships between them and their customers. But their communications are not part of it. The communications are a separate thing. Your phone is a piece of plastic that sits on your desk, and there the two shall meet. Now, what we do is we link the whole thing together. And people will say that people have done it for ages, haven't they? And there's a thing called CTIs. That's what call centers do. And it's a piece of kind of middleware, if you like, that's trying to marry four disparate systems, like a telephone system, okay, and then you've got a telco out there like BT or someone. You have a call recording platform, and then you have this CRM system, this database of your data in. You're trying to get the whole lot to talk to each other. And I do an appalling joke about you need someone with a ponytail to drive it. It's written in Microsoft language called Tappy. No one says Tappy is crappy. But it's the long and short of it. It's about 100,000 plus pounds to do it, and it's fiddly. We come about it the other way. Yes, we're a telco. We're a UK license, an American one, we have a Dutch one, and we have a French one. No, we don't. We have a German one, actually. French one we're applying for. We haven't got it yet. And we are also the switchboard. We are the core recording platform. But most importantly, we're the integration into the CRM. And we built it in such a way as we don't really care what you've got. We can overlay over the top of it. We can just simply sit on top of your existing systems. So we say to people, have a play, use it, try it for a fortnight on us. And what we see is that 80% of people who trial it go on and buy Cloud Call as a service, which is a fantastic statistic. Admittedly, if you're an enterprise-grade business, you've probably self-selected a bit by the time you've chosen to have a trial, but that is the satisfaction that people get from using it. And the answer to that is why. Why do so many people go and buy it? If you talk to my salespeople, they will say, it's the functionality that it has. It's the return on investment. It makes your salespeople and your customer services people far more efficient. So rather than manually dialing a number, I just click on it. When an inbound call comes up, it pops and says who's calling. And we've got some other technologies such as if I'm ringing someone on a mobile number, we'll show a mobile number ringing. And you're 28% more likely to answer the phone than you would if there's a local number ringing. And this kind of technology. That's all true. And I'll explain why we focus on recruitment and staffing and what we are doing for that industry in particular. But to me, the real magic, and I think this is why people buy it, is for the business intelligence. It's because you're linking the data and the communications together. And let me give you some examples of what I mean by that. Because we're linking to your data and your customer data in the CRM, Let's say you've got an account manager who's looking after 100 users, 100 customers. I know exactly which ones he's spoken to. What's the point? I know he hasn't spoken to those 20 customers for the last 6 weeks. And why? I know any customer of ours that's called into our tech support team more than 4 times a month. Actually, anyone who calls more than 5 times a month, we put them at triage special care because they're flight risk. There's something wrong. I know that you promised to call someone back last week and haven't done. Think about that. How many complaint letters include they promised to call me back and never did? I can automatically send a report to your boss saying you haven't done it. It's that business intelligence. It's not just the fact knowing what your salespeople are doing, how many calls they made, how long it took them to answer the call. It's all about knowing what's happening with your customers and customer satisfaction. But that's what the product does at the base level. But it goes back to us. It's all about these CRMs, these customer relationship management systems. And first of all, there are thousands of them. Loads and loads and loads and loads of them. The CRM market globally is worth about $40 billion. $40 billion. And to make the maths very easy is a simple bit of maths. If you say that the average CRM is about £60 per user per month, our ARPU, the rent we charge per user, is about £30. So there you go. We've got a $20 billion addressable market. The penetration at the moment, I don't know, 5%? Call it 10 if you like. It's not that high. So it's an enormous market for us to go at. The issue we have is we're really quite small. So where do we focus? Where is the lowest hanging fruit for us? And if you look at this chart of CRMs, starting down the bottom here, this is Microsoft Dynamics growing about 10% of the market. You've got Oracle and SAP and those kind of things disappearing away. The blue one here with about 25% of the market, that's Salesforce. That's the behemoth, the big one, Salesforce.com. Huge. Salesforce Towers over there. But this lot here, nearly 50% of the market and growing. There are thousands in there. There's doctors ones, there's dentist ones, there's hairdressers ones, there's legal ones, there's certainly logistic ones. And there are some in the pharmaceutical industry that specialize in that area. And the recruitment ones. So that collectively, there are loads. And as far as competition is concerned, there's about half a dozen companies do what we do. Every single one of them is in Salesforce. I can only find one other in Microsoft Dynamics. And by the time you get up here, there's thousands of CRMs, but we don't have any competition at all. There's not a single integration with them. They're complete virgin territory. So where do we focus? That's what we did. So, and again, this is the .digital story. We focused down on one particular one called Bullhorn. And they're a recruitment CRM, and we specialize in recruitment. That is where we're putting our flag. That is where we're getting a name for ourselves. And that's where we're pretty damn good, actually. But that's the market, and that's who we are, and that's the space. I'll come back to it in a moment. I just want to talk about the business because we've just put out our figures for last year. So we're very fast growing. So 42% increase in revenue over the year. This is our half on half revenue. As you can see, we just add users each month. Okay, the recurring revenue went up by 55%. We run at a gross margin of 80%. That's up about 1.5% from last year. We are loss making. We reduced the losses, some of it because we capitalized some of our software. And just before Christmas, just before the year end, we went and raised some additional funds. Now we had sufficient money, we believe, to get through to break even. But we raised an additional £5.7 million, which gives us currently, at the year end, effectively about 6.7 million. So we paid down the debt facility we had, and we still have that there, and we have just a short 5 million in the bank at Christmas. And we did it for a number of reasons, and I'll explain why, because we want to accelerate where we're going to. But if you look at it, the simplest way to talk about this business, actually, I think, is in users, because that's what we do at the end of the day. And this is our sign-up-ing users each half going backwards. Last year, we averaged just over 600. And I'm pleased to say this year's started well. We're averaging just below 700 users per month. And we think that each user is worth to us just short of £30. It's a very, very simple piece of math to see. That's a net figure, how our revenue is growing each month. Yep. So there we are. So over the year, our users went up by 45%. Our customers only went up by 17%. Why is that? Because we're focusing on larger customers. Again, as a small startup business, we were terribly excited. We tried to close anything that went past the window. We realized actually that small onesies, twosies aren't needle shifting. So we're focusing on the larger companies. So we have Manpower using us and Randstad, and those kind of large recruitment companies. Our revenue is 87% recurring, which is a great statistic. We've got a pretty good idea of what we've got coming in next month before we get out of bed. And our recurring revenue per user is down from 30 to £28 last year. Actually, surprisingly, that's not bad news. What it means is we're selling an awful lot more in the US. In the US, we charge a low rate for it. Actually, the figure in the UK is held firm at 30.4, but the US sales is really starting to take off. And our gross margin sneaked up a bit. This is really what is happening under the bonnet of this business. If you forget anything else, remember this. The average customer signing up for the contract was about 18 months. But if you look at our churn rate of customers, that gives you an implied lifetime value of each one of them. And it's slightly over 10 years. Each month, our salespeople are signing up new customers. A typical customer is about 40 users, and it costs us around about just over £5,500 to sign them up. So that customer, over his 10-year lifespan, is worth just over £100,000 to us, if you take that and calculate it forward. And we are signing up between just shy of about 20 and 25 of those a month. So that is what is happening under the bonnet. We are continuously building up this recurring revenue. And so we came out of last year signing up about, what's the run we've got at the moment, about 700 customers a month at about £30 per user. So they are adding on £20,000 a month of recurring revenue. Why did we raise the money and why do we think we can go faster? I'll explain what the strategy is and what we're doing in 2018. The first thing is look at our CRMs we integrate with. We focused it down on a limited number. We have probably the best, almost certainly, the best integration in the market for Microsoft Dynamics. And we're possibly in the top couple for Salesforce. Collectively, they represent 35% of that CRM market. And we do nothing with it. We don't spend any money on it. It is all passive marketing. We're on the app exchanges. 30% of our business comes from these two. But I say we've got competition in Salesforce. There's a huge amount more we could do. But we don't, because we've got passive income coming in. Because the way we focus is on Bullhorn. And this is a CRM company, and it's a recruitment company. And the reason we focus on them is every lead we get, we close 1 in 2.5. As a company, they had a regional base of around about 100,000 users, so they're not that big. We've got penetration of their UK market to the tune of about 23, 24% now, and the US we're still running around about 6%. The reason why we've got the penetration is because we have a very good relationship with them. In fact, they selected us and they use us internally themselves. So all 500 of their staff see Cloud Call working on a daily basis. Their commissions on it, the reports they get from it. But they've also discovered that actually if you go to a prospective customer as a Bullhorn by itself, or they go along with the Cloud Call Bullhorn combination, the close ratio goes up. In fact, they tend to go in with a couple of partners. And we have seen a continuing trend of acceleration from these guys in the last year. And that is continued. They are now taking us into all the enterprise customers as we move forward. But we picked the right winner here a bit is because in September last year, they bought a company called Connexus. They got about another 20,000 users. They're based out of Rotterdam. Connexus are again already on our telco platform. We're already talking to the customer bases. And then literally 2 weeks ago, they announced they bought a company called Job Science and a company called Talent Rover, both large recruitment-focused CRM platforms. So our addressable easy market to get at is just effectively doubled from them. So this is something we really want to take advantage from. We've got meetings with the CEOs of the company, and I will explain how the marketing is going to, we think, accelerate what we do and increase our ARPU per user. Okay. So right now, looking at recruitment, I just want to explain a little bit about why we focused on this market, or why recruiters like us. In many cases, they're very simple businesses. They don't trust their staff because they have a huge staff turnover. And they're in communications are their lifeblood, because they're always talking to people. But the three biggest issues they've got at the moment, talk to anyone, is you've got candidate shortages. There are a shortage of people, which means more and more people are using recruitment companies. It's good for them, but it's terribly difficult to find candidates. And we find that in any industry, but we find this in pharmaceuticals, there's a shortage of good people. The second thing is this line about millennials are different. And looking at the audience here, I'm going to struggle to prove my point possibly a little bit. But I love this chart here. The younger you are, the more texts and messages you send. And kids in their 30s are sending over 100 texts and messages a day. By the time you get to my age down here, it's nowhere near as much. And so if you are talking to people, you need to be able to speak in the language in which they speak to. So we are launching a messaging product. And I'll explain why this is so important to us and why I believe this is going to increase our ARPU in 2018. But the third issue they've got is GDPR. I'm not going to go on about. This is the General Data Protection Regulation coming out of Europe. And I'll explain it, but for recruitment companies, this is a big issue. Okay, so the first one is candidate shortages. This is where, and take a company like Manpower. We now have the whole of their, one office short. They're rolling this across UK, and they're rolling this out across Europe at the moment. This is where they use Cloud Call to an advantage of theirs to beat other people. Because in many cases, if you're looking for you've been given a job spec, you're looking for a candidate, it could be Barclays Bank who's given you that job, and they will give it to 3 or 4 different agencies. You have to be the first person to get to that candidate, because that's where you get paid. It's absolutely vital. So what typically people do is they will search on LinkedIn, they will search their own databases, and they will pull up a list of, shall we say, 100 people. And they will give it to somebody who will then manually dial through. What Experis are doing is they're doing the same thing. They're picking up a list of 100. They give it to 4 or 5 people, and they put them in the Cloud Call dialer. And yes, we have a dialer. It'll blast through them about 50 times, 40% quicker, actually. So in 10 or 15 minutes, you cover the whole lot, you bring them back to there again, and then you go back to Barclays and say, there you are, sir. I've covered everybody in that market. Now, the other people ring up, you're ahead of them. It gives them the edge. And this is why they're rolling us out across Europe. And we're talking to other big companies too. The second thing is this texting. I'm back to millennials again. And some lovely statistics. 60% of millennials say they prefer texting to phoning. 40% of millennials say they prefer talking to a chatbot rather than a human being. I'm not going to explain what a chatbot is. Okay. But so this is the key for us is that this is the Cloud Call classic phone that sits on your screen and how you can control everything from there and record the calls and all the stuff you could do with it. This is an extension.